What fictional character do you absolutely hate? That cowardly, wheel-eye, rat-faced looking, ducking little bitch Percy Wetmore from the Green Mile. Duck that little chiz. But bless Stephen King, one of his many gifts as a writer is he makes sure the dastard in the story gets it good, so you can have that super delicious primal satisfaction of seeing Old Testament like justice served up. The popular kids in Lilo and Stitch. That redhead bitch made me so mad. Dinklerberg, Mr. Turner likes this. Nazim. I've been to the Cloud District, Nazim. Never saw you there. Yup, I have definitely killed him a time or two. Rita ducking Skeeter. Apparently J.K. Rowling had based her character on an actual reporter. KLOW is the biggest a-hole ever, and I don't think I really need to explain any further tbh. I unironically feel bad for the character after I read up on why he's such a spoiled bitch. Apparently he was supposed to be 2 years old, but the ducking producers or publishers, or whatever made him older, because they thought children wouldn't like watching a show about a very young child. Cough cough Rugrats cough duck those producers or publishers, or whatever. That smug dastard Squilliam Van Sizen. I had a childhood friend named Edward Williams, and one random day we caught on that we could start calling him Squidward Squilliams, since both those names appeared in SpongeBob. He utterly hated it, not because we were calling him a stupid name, but because he didn't want us to remind him of Squilliam every time we talked to him. That old prick in The Last Airbender, that turned in the Earthbender, that saved his life, and got him sent to prison. He was a piece of chiz. This just made me mad remembering it, thank you. Muffy from Arthur. Yeah, her character is supposed to be the snobby rich girl, but she goes far beyond being just that. She is rude to all of her friends, and doesn't even try to acclimate to her school environment. The only time she does is when an episode doesn't feature her, and she becomes a voice of reason for someone else facing a conflict, and she isn't good at that at all. One time when Francine's family hosted her, she was the worst guest ever, complaining about everything when they were doing the best they can to make her feel welcome. Then when Francine is annoyed by it, as anyone would be, Muffy is the bitch who plays the victim. Another example is when she scheduled her birthday party the same day as Arthur, even though it wasn't her actual birthday, and Arthur had people from out of town coming in. She's just a sociopath that never feels empathy for anyone, and her character isn't a good example for children. She has no redeeming values at all. Don't forget that time she told Francine, who is Jewish, that Hanukkah wasn't as important as Christmas. At least, on the bright side, she's usually pointed out as the villain. So, kids, supposedly, won't try to emulate her. Lotso from Toy Story is the bane of my existence. r/Takaya Lotso. He turned Sunnyside into a living hell out of spite. Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter is one of my most hated Forja. Honestly, Bellatrix killed our favorite doggy, and she still didn't even qualify for the most disgusting villain of the 5th book awards. That is how foul the toad is. McCaducking Bell. That backstabbing, manipulative ducker. Also, Mindy from Snow Point City in the Sinopokemon games. She trades you a Haunter, but it's holding an Everstone, so you don't get Jenga. Duck Mindy and everyone who looks like Mindy. Mindy sucks. There's the ducker. I thought I was the only one calling him out here. I wish that they cold left him up on Mount Hadjan after shooting him so that he could feel his blood freeze in his veins. He deserved so much more than what he got. Wow, that freeloading Chislord Grandpa Joe hasn't been named yet. Duck that guy. Edit. Thank you /Notaman for the gold. I'm just sorry it had to come from mentioning that worthless duckhole Joe just jumps out of bed as soon as Charlie has that golden ticket and needs a chaperone. Dancing a jig like he hasn't been bedridden all those years. The mother figure in Tangled. Gothel. She reminds me of the worst traits of my ex-wife. The passive-aggressive comments and put-downs, with an I'm just kidding excuse behind it all. The manipulation and guilt trips, and elitism. I love a good villain, but this one hits too close to home for me. When you've seen that kind of attitude in real life, it is sickening to see being portrayed on TV. Great. Now I'm the bad guy. Oh yeah, you are. Gothel is awful. It also took me a long time to realize that anytime she shows any form of affection to Rapunzel, it's directed at her hair. Abigail Williams. Read The Crucible in high school, and I still hate that bitch. It's Proctor's fault for having an affair in the first place, but man, does Abigail take Chiz too far for her own gain without facing consequence. At the end of the book, it says she apparently became a prostitute. Ike. Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a cold, heartless tyrant rather than the caregiver a nurse is expected to be. She's the personification of the dehumanizing effect of living under authoritarian rule. I guess there's a difference between characters you hate, because they are well portrayed, exactly as the director intended, and characters you hate, because they are just annoying you. Nurse Ratched and K-Win are both good examples of the former. I like that I hate them. Greg Heffalai. As a kid, I thought he was just a down on his luck kid who just couldn't seem to catch a break. He didn't have the best home life, and just wanted attention and respect from his peers. As an adult, I see him as a rude, arrogant, entitled, ignorant, selfish, condescending a-hole. He takes advantage of others. He pulls mean pranks on people, including his friend Rowley, who is a saint. He tries to get into positions of power for his own gain. And here's the thing, no matter how many times he screws other people over, he still maintains a victim mentality. He's like, oh, woe is me, why me, blah blah blah. He also rarely takes responsibility for his actions, preferring instead to find a scapegoat. Greg Heffalai is like an older version of Bart Simpson. The only real difference apart from age is that Bart usually accepts responsibility when he's caught and tries to make it right. There's my 2 cents. Edit. Thank you for the silver, kind stranger. Edit 2. Thank you for the gold, other kind stranger. Edit 3. Wow. I did not expect this answer to blow up like it did. Thank you all for the karma points, and to whoever gave me the take my energy reward. Wouldn't mind an annotated version of the first book, where adult Greg reads his old diary and reflects on how much of a cheesehead he was in middle school. Scrappy Ducking Dooman. Making him the villain in the live action film was great. That little smart-mouthed kid with glees from Polar Express. One of the most punchable animated faces of all time. Wormtail. Darlor's Thunder Nunt Umbridge for me. Edit. To the absolute legend who gilded me. Thank you. This is the highlight of my 2020. Definitely not gelded. Saul's brother Chuck from Better Call Saul. Michael McKean should have gotten an Emmy for his performance in season 3, though. Goddamn what a character. Caleb from King of the Hill. Dusty old bones, full of green dust. That episode made me genuinely angry. Maven Blackbriar from Skyrim. Little Chiz's corrupt and her meat tastes like Falmer piss. Edit. Thanks for the gold. As cheesy and cliched as it might be, you spend actual money on some stranger ranting about why he hates some video game character, and for that, I salute to you. All my home is like honing brewmead. Not so much a single character as a trope. The super intelligent person who's always 5 steps ahead and never makes any mistakes. Strangely enough, I'm reading the complete Sherlock Holmes series right now, and he doesn't bother me as much as he does screw up on occasion. Sherlock Holmes of the books is not as super intelligent as it's portrayed on movies or TV. I felt him like an average guy, but with an attention to details higher than the average. There was a show on Nickelodeon called As Told by Ginger. The main character, Ginger, her best friend was named Dodie. Well, let me tell ya, Duck Dodie, all she wants is to be popular and would slash and has backstabbed Ginger. Now the rich girl in the show, Courtney, was a bitch in her own way, but throughout the series, became friends with Ginger. She treated her better than her original friend Dodie. Courtney always had Ginger's back. Edit. The funny thing is that my favorite character in the show was Miranda, who was the biggest bitch ever, but she made it up with her bitchy hilarious attitude. Never forget that Dodie and Massey tried to break up Ginger and Aaron, and Courtney was the one who told Ginger about it. She was a real friend. Shoutaka from FMA/FMA, B. Yes. Thank you. Fun fact, in the manga, whenever a character dies, there's a clip at the end of the manga showing the character ascending to heaven. Even the homunculi went to heaven. Shoutaka was the only character shown being ripped down to hell. the circus ringmaster from Atla, when Appa was kidnapped, and everyone else who was involved in that trade. Seriously, duck anyone who messes with Appa. General Pong Krell murderer. Duck him. He made me crave for Order 66 to happen to him. Gay Bugliano from Percy Jackson. Guy's abusive a-hole got everything he deserved. I read something that said shout out to Rick Riordan for straight up killing the abusive stepdad instead of trying to redeem him. Amen. Sheldon is such an insufferable little bitch. Duck that ducking duck and duck the Big Bang Theory. Ha, I feel that way about every character, they are all really unlikable. Bobule from To Kill a Mockingbird. Easily the most despisable villain of all time. TKAM is one of my favorite agent reading books, and Bobule makes me angry every time I read it. Duck him. Also, duck Mayella. She's the one that blatantly lied in court about Tom raping her. I hate Brian from Family Guy with a paean. That episode where Quagmire absolutely ripped him a new a-hole was porn to me. He's such a piece of chiz. That's such a great speech. Brian, I'm trying to establish a friendship with you. All I've done is try to be nice to you, and you still don't like me. How can you not like me? Quagmire. Okay, I'll tell you. You are the worst person I know. You constantly hit on your best friend's wife. The man pays for your food and rescued you from certain death, and this is how you repay him? And to add insult to injury, you defecate all over his yard. And you're such a sponge. You pay for nothing. You always say, Mox Brian, ooh, I'll get you later, but later never comes. And what really bothers me is you pretend that you're this deep guy that loves women for their souls, when all you do is date bimbos. Yeah, I date women for their bodies, but at least I'm honest about it. I don't buy them a copy of Catcher in the Rye and then lecture them with some 7th grade interpretation about how Holden Caulfield was some profound intellectual. He wasn't. He was a spoiled brat. And that's why you like him so much. He's you. You're pretentious. And you delude yourself by thinking you're some great writer, even though you're terrible. You know, I should have known Cheryl Tiegs didn't write me that note. She would have known there's nowhere in the word definite. And what I think I hate most about you is your textbook liberal agenda. How we should, Mox again, legalize pot, man, how big business is crushing the underclass, how homelessness is the biggest tragedy in America. Well, what have you done to help? I work down at the soup kitchen. Brian, never seen you down there. You wanna help? Grab a ladle. And by the way, driving a Prius doesn't make you Jesus Christ. Oh, wait. You don't believe in Jesus Christ, or any religion for that matter because, Mox again, religion is for idiots. Well, who the hell are you to talk down to anyone? You failed college twice, which isn't nearly as bad as your failure as a father. How's that son of yours you never see? But you know what? I could forgive all of that, all of it, if you weren't such a bore. That's the worst of it, Brian. You're just a big, sad, alcoholic bore. Sighs, puts his napkin on the table, and sets to leave. I'll see ya, Brian. Thanks for the ducking steak. Jerry from Tom and Jerry. Tom could be just chilling, minding his own business. Then Jerry decides to be a ducker. I've hated a-hole characters that always won, since I was a kid. Yeah, Tom was a Rick too, but god there's something about Jerry that makes me irrationally angry. Duck you Jerry, I hope Tom eats you. I honestly can't stand Janice from Mean Girls. At first I was cool with her, but then I watched it and she's one of the biggest a-holes in the movie. She's basically as bad as Regina. Think about it this way. If Regina is a snake and is a chisty person, then what kind of person would be best friends with her? Janice sat back and called them sluts the entire movie, but it said she was the one who came up with the choreography for the Jingle Bell Rock dance. What annoys me the most is near the end, when she just exposes all that Chizzer and Caddy did, but in a way, like it was righteous or something, and then gets all these cheers and cheers, like it was the right thing to do. Caddy was right at the party. You're the one who made me like this, so you could use me for your 8th grade revenge. That's literally what Janice did, and then wanted to sit back and act all smug and innocent when it blew back into her face. All the girls are mean, except Karen. She was just stupid. Ted Mosby. The dude tells a 9-year story about his ex-girlfriend to his kids. Guys does a story about how he met their mother. Why I deserve to make a pirate your Aunt Robin. Mr. Ezra Fitz from Pretty Little Liars. The whole teacher/high school student romance was gross and creepy, but the show framed it as this sexy forbidden romance. Also, why was he not fired for being in a romantic relationship with a minor student? And where was CPS on his The duck from the Duck Song. For some reason Reddit loves him, but all he did was give that poor lemonade vendor a hard time. Like, he's a grown man selling lemonade. His life is already hard enough, so there's no need to be Eric. To be fair, in the sequels the duck introduces the man running the stand to his girlfriend. That has to be at least somewhat redeeming. Vernon Dursley from Harry Potter. Screw that guy. Yes, has such a Rick, but then he never wants him to leave until the 5th book. Never made any sense to me. Bella from Twilight. And Edward too. Has a complete stalker, and Bella for some reason likes that. And I'm mad that I wasted my time reading the first book. Literally the entire thing is just Bella developing a crush on Edward, like, oh no I like him, but has a vampire, and finally, the action happens in the last few chapters where some sadistic vampire hunts her down. By that point, I was rooting for him, not her. There are so many side characters in Twilight that are more interesting than the main ones. Trish from Jessica Jones. Acts like she hated the spotlight her mom put her in, then spends all of her time being the victim and doing anything to stay relevant. Couldn't even handle the fact that Jessica had powers. Couldn't deal with the fact that she wasn't the special one in their friendship. Threw everything away and actively put them all in danger just so she could try and get powers. Hated every one of her scenes. I really liked Trish in season 1. She was an enjoyable character for me, and I liked any time she was on screen. And then she went and unilaterally made the call to kill Jessica's mom, and I've been disgusted with her ever since. There was no coming back from that. Any shot of redemption was shot to hell and blasted to bits along with Jessica's mom's brains. Season 3 just made her even worse, and I'm vexed that a character I enjoyed became a character I despised, and I think what they did with Trish was disgusting, honestly. Lily Aldrin. It's ironic because I absolutely love Alyson Hannigan, but can't stand Lily. She left Marshall to pursue her pain in art across the country, then just expected him to take her back when it ended up failing. She sabotaged several of Ted's relationships because she didn't see how they would fit perfectly into her own life. She had thousands of dollars of credit card debt that she hid from Marshall when he was deciding on buying a new home. She just randomly steals things from people when she doesn't like something they did or said. Come to think of it, the only person out of the main 5 characters that seemed like a genuinely good guy was Marshall. I agree, but with the addition of the mother, when I first watched the show I absolutely fell in love with her character. When I rewatch it, I have to stop the episode at the point where she dies because I legitimately did not care about Robin and Ted's storyline at the end. Grew to hate Lily from him when I rewatched it and realized how often she meddles in her friends' lives, especially their relationships, just so she can get what she wants. Like breaking up your 2 best friends, just so you can have some better company for a fantasy game of cards way off in the future? Can't stand her. How about that time she left Marshall? Sweet perfect marshmallow. Broke his heart. He's too good for her. Peppa Pig. Peppa's mom. What's wrong, honey Peppa? I can't whistle. Peppa's mom. Duck all your problems, bitch, I'm making cookies in a muffin pan. This scene cracks me up so much. Dialogue may not be entirely accurate. I don't exactly hate her, just a very general disliking. Laurie Grimes. Comic Laurie was actually a good character that made sense. Sure, Laurie got mad at Rick for killing Shane in self-defense after he tried to kill Rick several times and tried to rape Law. Why was she mad at him for this? I was gonna say that Ramsay Bolton would be among the most hated Game of Thrones character, but now I think Joffrey Baratheon would be the absolute worst as a character. I see your Joffrey and raise you Walder free. Ra's al Ghul, on the face of it the guy is a pretty compelling villain. He does what he does for the good of mankind, even if it means doing the unspeakable. Unfortunately, he absolutely needs to be the center of attention in everything he does. Other popular Batman villains like Joker or the Penguin can show up to cause chaos for a few scenes and then leave. They don't need to be a central part of the story. But with Raz, even the slightest mention of him means that the climax will have him show up and do the whole yes, it was I. My machinations lay undetected blah 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 blah. It's predictable and always ruins a good adventure for me. Lysander F, you were behind all of this? Is everyone in The Great Gatsby too broad a stroke? I think that's the point. Cyrus. That trick is ducked in the head. Duck off, I've got work to do. K-Wine from Deep Space Nine. She was the worst. The fact that Benjamin Sisko quickly started facepalming whenever he'd hear that she'd arrived on the station tells you just how much K-Win is annoying. Manny from Modern Family. His suave act was irritating when he was a kid, but he had some funny moments. As an adult it was just unbearable. None of the youngest characters aged well, but for me the worst is Alex. I can't stand her. She's rude to everyone, which is insufferable. What makes it even more insufferable is that she treats her family like they're beneath her because she's smart and gets good grades. She is transparent about the fact that she thinks she's better than all of them. She's so condescending to Haley in particular because she's a girly girl who likes clothes. Like damn bitch, just let your sister live her life. The youngest daughter of Brad Pitt in World War Z. I know she's like 3, but that girl got on me nerves the whole movie. Whining inches. His whole family was annoying as duck. Let's just call my husband during a covered secret mission. What could go wrong? I hate Stuart Little. Let's see who survives my attempted vehicular manslaughter. Me in a Ford F-150 or Stuart in his little RC car. Deleted. Honestly, I think that Mr. Krabs in some of the later seasons was one of the most pretentious, selfish and borderline psychopathic fictional characters. How he tormented Plankton and abused SpongeBob's ignorance really infuriated me. Like he started off as your typical cheapskate boss, but he became such a rickhead later, and his character really pissed me off. His cheap side was exaggerated, and he became a character that forced Plankton into hiding at some point. Can't remember the episode name. But what pissed me off the most is the fact that he always got away with it. Not to mention he gave up SpongeBob's soul for a couple of cents. Todd Packer from The Office. Who has 2 thumbs and hates Todd Packer? Carrie Bradshaw. I remember that one time her husband just wanted to chill out, and she made a big stink about going to some event. She's the epitome of a me person. I used to love Sex and the City when I was a teenager, and it came on TBS, didn't have HBO. Watching it as an adult now I have such a different perspective of it. Carrie really was a selfish bitch. I remember one episode where she bitches at Charlotte for not offering to loan her like $30,000. Carrie is so freaking entitled and guilt trips Charlotte into loaning her the money because Carrie can't get a loan due to her reckless spending. What a chisty friend. The governor in the Walking Dead comics. I was physically angry reading those comics. The governor is the biggest piece of chiz in the entire series. Every other major villain in The Walking Dead does the horrible things they do because those things keep their groups alive. There's a twisted morality to them. Not the ducking governor, though. He enjoys every moment of being a sadistic nunt, and he is kind and concerned for his people, only so long as they keep him in power and relative luxury. The biggest mistake Mitchen made wasn't leaving Ezekiel. It was that she didn't make sure the ducking prick was dead when she had the opportunity to end him. Carly from The Inbetweeners. She led poor Simon on for like a decade. It's a shame they made his girlfriend from the movie such a terrible person in the sequel. She was actually good for him after Carly treated him like pure chiz. Ross from Friends. Acts like a quintessential nurse guy, and he pisses me off, especially in the later seasons. All of the characters from Friends obviously have flaws, but his flaws and Rachel's are my least favorite things to watch. They just bring out the worst in each other. How anyone thinks that being possessive over your ex, with whom you've been broken up since years ago, is romantic is beyond me. Their relationship just makes me want to shoot myself. Jen from The Office. The things she did to Michael were disgusting, and also was kind of a creep. I couldn't hate her more. I understand. Making Michael wear the schoolgirl uniforms was too much. I personally hate the senator more. General Ponkrell. Traitor scum. Umbra is so well written. That was so enraging to see how he betrayed his men. Cartman. Imagine you would actually know him. I've known somebody like Cartman. He was the worst. Rory ducking Gilmore and Gilmore Girls. There aren't words to describe how much I absolutely hate her, and what makes it worse that everyone loves her. Most people start hating her after season 4, but there are still people who adore her. I had to take a break from the show because I couldn't stand her at all. I mean, even in the beginning she was obnoxious, but her whole town seems obsessed with her and says she's not like other girls because she read SBOOKs and doesn't wear makeup. She's entitled and a brat. She said that she didn't like that Dean was together with Lindsay after a month or two after they broke up, and said that she wanted him to be sad for a little longer when she literally got together with Jess the night they broke up. She has no problem with sleeping with married men and even cheating on her own boyfriends, but God forbid someone cheats on her. When she slept with Dean, when he was married to Lindsay, she justified it with "he was my boyfriend first." She's been told all her life that she's perfect. Then one person says she won't make it as a journalist, and she drops out of Yale. She then goes on to do more stupid stuff and expects everyone to be okay with it because whatever. And let's not forget that time she showed up to a job interview totally unprepared because she just assumed she would get the job. And this wasn't when she was 16. She was 32 years old. Rory Gilmore was the worst. She was ungrateful. She was entitled. She was a bitch. And I am so glad that she's not a real person. I loved the show when I was younger, but Rory dropping out of Yale was when I dropped the show. Everything I saw after that made me so mad. Everyone from Wuthering Heights had to read that in high school English, and even now 15 years later my bestie and I'll owe that book. She calls it Blubbering Duck. Ducking Vogler from House MD. He just used his economic power to gain social power in the form of being a board member of the hospital and didn't actually care about patients. And ducking Tritter. That son of a bitch put my teeth on edge for weeks. Dr. Mann from Interstellar. He was such a coward. Underrated comment. He sucked, and I think Matt Damon did a great job portraying a fallen idol / sniveling coward character. Myrtle from Lilo and Stitch. She constantly picks on Lilo, and when she finally retaliates, Myrtle plays the victim. I hate her with all my being. Duck that little piece of cheese. The red-headed child has a name. Duck that kid. Snape. He's in no way redeemed by his stalkerish obsessive love for Lily, or by his death. He's a piece of cheese through and through, and the only sad thing about his death is that people pretend it redeems him. He joined the Magic KKK entirely of his own volition, because he agreed with them, only because it personally affected him, because the object of his lust got did her turn against Voldemort. He was so despicable to Neville, that by 13 Snape was Neville's biggest fear. Imagine being that much of an a-hole to a child, because Voldemort didn't pick him to die. Robert the Bruce's father in Brotherhood. Enough said. The Charmin Bears. I don't want to hear a kid sing about his $$. Him charming clean. Commodus from Gladiator. I hate this guy. He's absolutely the worst, cheating, abusive, untrustable, lying pose of a traitor. This character is so well written and acted that to this day I still resent viewing the actor even in other roles. Agreed. Joaquin Phoenix is a great actor, but I can never unsee him being Commodus. If it helps, though, Commodus was just as awful in real life as he was in the movie, even though some events were different. The guy that looks like he has grapes as hair from My Hero Academia. He's perverted but not in a tasteful way. It's just so annoying. My best friend and I call him Grape Juice XDO. His hero name is Grape Juice apparently. Sorry for the confusion, I didn't pay him enough attention. Ducking Manita. I'll admit I've never been a huge fan of the whole pervert trope, but Manita really takes the cake. He literally has no redeeming qualities. Archero from Money Heist, but who doesn't? I don't like Tokyo either, but Archero is the worst. Starting with a wife and a mistress and that boo who I can't choose, I love you both chiz, then the constant big talk, as long as it was other people risking their lives, but instantly turning into a simpering coward when caught doing anything himself. I thought the rate was excessive, like we get it, He's an a-hole. You don't have to make him Ramsay Bolton or anything, but yeah, even worse. Keep being disappointed that he gets to live. Piper Ducking Chapman. The most unlikable main character in any series, ever. I'm so glad there were more story arcs besides hers. I couldn't think of an answer for this question, but you just reminded me of how much I hated Madison. Mosh. Screw that guy. These words are accepted. Percy from Harry Potter. Yes, he eventually came back to his family, but he ignored them and treated everyone below him from what I remember. I sympathize with him. He was a bit pompous and straight-laced, but he was also constantly made fun of by his younger siblings. His achievement of head boy was less significant, since Bill had already done that. He has struggled with his parents' poverty and their inability to use contraception despite their poor finances. When he takes a job at the ministry, he is diligent and hardworking, albeit still full of himself. He is still seen as Arthur's son, a wizard, while still seen as a nice man, is also perceived as odd and unambitious. When Voldemort returns, the full ministry propaganda machine goes into effect. Both the ministry and the newspapers are against Harry's story. Percy, who has always been a fastidious rule follower, follows the government, rather than the unsubstantiated story of a 14-year-old boy. Then you need to factor in that Fudge has made clear anyone with Dumbledore is going to be fired. The ambitious Percy has his entire career to lose. His dad, in his dead-end job, can deal with that, but Percy cannot. His rift with them is cemented when the Weasleys suggest his promotion is not because of his ability and hard work, but just a ruse to get him to spy on the rest of the family. I think the resentment he's had building for years exploded. A young man who has worked hard his entire life is understandably upset that his achievements are diminished yet again. He lashes out against his family, the siblings who bullied him, and the parents whose reputation and poverty he had to struggle against. He's wrong to do it, but I don't judge a 19 over 20-year-old too harshly for it. After this, he's clearly ashamed he was wrong, but his resentment against his family isn't rooted in Voldemort's return, but in their treatment of him, hence why he doesn't return to them when the Second War begins. He does escape the ministry when Voldemort takes over because despite his nature to follow authority, he is not an immoral person like Umbridge. I think he isn't an especially likable character, but I do sympathize with him. Adam Con overplaying himself in Adam Ruins Everything, aka the living embodiment of Reddit pseudo-intellectuals. He's a smug, condescending, egocentric, know-it-all prick who always thinks he's the smartest man in the room, and won't shut up until everyone around him knows about it. It would be bearable if what he was saying was at least factual, but that's not always the case. He cares more about blowing minds and disproving the narrative with truth bombs, regardless of how correct that original narrative is. And you don't see it until he starts talking out of his ear about a topic you're familiar with. For me, it was Copernicus, and you realize just how much bullshit he's spewing. And when called out, he hides behind the shields of "Are you actually taking a comedian as serious educational advice, or may you do your own research? And I'm just trying to start a conversation and inspire people to start investigating." I don't care if it's meant to be deliberate and self-aware, ironically designing a character to be aggravating and then laughing at people who get aggravated is basically this. Thank you. I've always said has a human embodiment of clickbait. Loud, annoying, and maybe correct in a well technically that is true way, but leaves out a whole bunch of inconvenient facts that make the story less sensational. I always disliked him. But the window breaking moment for me was when he was trying to say that everyone already has herpes. I think it was in the sex episode. He conveniently combined the statistics for a whole bunch of kind of herpes, rather than just talking about HSV2, the usual culprit of genital herpes. HSV2 is closer to 10-15% of the population, which is quite a big leap from whatever huge number he was trying to spout off. In TV there are lovable annoying characters, and then characters that are so annoying you turn off the show. Has definitely all the way in that second camp. Marvel's new Warriors. Like, what the actual duck is Snowflake and Sapphire Space? Breathed experimental internet gas and magic backpack of divine alien origin bother me a lot more than anything about Snowflake and Sapphire Space. Sloan from Aragon. The father of Katrina is a lying awful bitch born piece of chiz, an a-hole and an absolute coward. I find it fitting that he's named after a urinal. This may be controversial for some Heathers fans, but JD from the movie Heathers, I think has so annoying. I don't know how Veronica fell for him honestly. Like, how can you choose him over Mr. Mosby? Oh, and I would also like to add Jeremy here to this list, because he was a straight up a-hole. Like, he ditched his best friend, like it was nothing, and when Mitchell was having a panic attack in the bathroom he was nowhere to be found. So much for to play a game. I wish he had a words fail moment where he genuinely apologized to Mitchell. Also, he didn't deserve to end up with Christine cause she deserves way better than him. Edit. Thank you so much for the award app. He's a horrible person all around. I hate how he gets romanticized so much. Daisy Buchanan from The Great Gatsby. She's a spoiled, immature, entitled little brat who lead Gatsby on and then didn't bear any responsibility for the fallout. Infuriating. I just reread The Great Gatsby and none of the characters in that particular love triangle are all that likable tbh. Daisy is everything you said, and then Tom honestly even worse, but I think a lot of people forget how awful Gatsby himself is. People get lost in the romanticism of long lost love, but they forget that Gatsby is kind of a piece of s. He abandoned his poor family, got rich through dishonest means, spends all of his money on lavish parties, to try to attract the attention of a girl he dated briefly 5 years before, and when he finally does catch her attention, and convinces her to be with, he wants her to pretend like she never loved her husband. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.